Hey everyone, Adam with Droid Media here, and today we're using geometry to get better interview lighting. I know what you're thinking, Adam, video production and mathematics? This might be the sexiest video on the internet. Jokes aside though, what I do want to walk you through today are 4 setups that I have found work really well when it comes to interview lighting. I do want to preface this video by saying that it is geared towards beginners or people that are just starting out and looking to jump into like documentary work or testimonial or interview heavy video production. Now these scenarios are all loosely based around 3-point lighting, but I've added maybe my own little twist on them. This is going to be lighting scenario 1. Now, because interviews or testimonials are all about the subject that we're interviewing, we are going to make a little circle here in the middle to illustrate who that is. Now, that circle for all of these purposes is going to be the interviewee. Here is one of the things that I like to do immediately when I've got just a standard scenario is I'm going to draw, and I do this kind of in my mind. I don't actually, have chalk, and I don't do this in a room when I'm out on set. But in my mind, I think about a triangle around this person. Now, for most people, they would think that this would be 3-point lighting. We would have a light here, and a light here. And in some cases, that works really well. But for this purpose, what we're going to do is I'm going to say this is the camera, that little C right there. Now, that's going to give us a nice kind of look at this person this way. So if we put a light maybe back here and over here, what this is doing, if this person is looking off this direction or this direction, we've got a nice backlight in either direction, and then the other light would act as a fill, but we don't have a key light yet, which is okay. So what we want to do for this is we want to assume, let's go ahead and draw a couple like little tick marks here just to illustrate this. Now these little like halfway points are what I consider other kind of really good nodes to put things at, just because it keeps everything nice and squared, nice and even all the way around. So for this one, normally what I would do is I would put, let's say my interviewee, or interviewer rather, is over here, and then that means our talent's looking off this way. So our camera's this way, this ends up being this L over here, this light over here, this ends up being the key light. Then what we want to do is we want to have a fill light on this side, and this also could act as a bit of a backlight or a bit of a rim light, but that's what this other light back here is going to act as. It's going to separate them from the background. Now this other little node here, and this is pretty common in some of the other scenarios I'm going to walk you through as well. This other one, I like to put another little light here down low sometimes and aim it up at the background. This is a good spot for a background light. And the one thing to kind of note about this is obviously you can spin this around however you want, but depending on which way you want your talent looking, if you want them looking to the right or to the left off camera, you can interchange the interviewee spot and the key light spot. And it's not going to make any difference. It's just going to flip that lighting scenario or flip the image in that way. So that is interview lighting setup number 1. Using this, and this looks like a really bad drawing of like the Deathly Hallows. I'd say we maybe get a line in the middle. So interview lighting setup number 1. Interview lighting setup number 2 that we're going to go over in just a sec is one that I use when I have limited space. Now, if you've done interview work before, you know how horrible it is when you get to the location and you find out that it's a person's office and it's tiny and cramped and you have limited space to work with in there. So what I personally like to do is film into a corner to add some more depth to my interview shot. You can actually see I'm doing that right now. I'm filming into the corner of my house over here. Just ignore all the tchotchkes and Legos and plants that I've got. So this is one that I use when I'm in smaller scenarios. Again, let's put our talent here in the middle, and then I'm going to draw this line, a line straight down this way, and then I'm going to draw another line here. And again, we're using a triangle in this shape now too. They're kind of in the middle of this triangle. I'm going to put the camera here and it's going to aim at this person this way. This dotted line is going to kind of represent the small room that we've got. So the rest of this room is here. Maybe the person has a desk or something in the background there. But this is going to give us the most depth in our shot in a kind of a cramped scenario. Then from there, what we want to do is, again, make a couple of these little nodes here. And on either side here, we're going to have the interviewer. And I'll abbreviate that with INT this time. And then we want to put a light in each of these corners. Now what that's going to do is it's going to give us a key light and a back light on the talent. And then we can use this other little node as the fill light. So key light, backlight, fill light, if you need to see those abbreviated a little more than what I did in that first one. Now, this gives us a lot of really nice depth. If you wanted to, you could put another light in the background here, but a lot of times, again, I use this when there's kind of a cramped setup. They've got a desk or a computer back there, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just turn the computer monitor on and put it on something kind of nondescript. It's a little blurred out anyway, but that gives the background a little bit more depth, and we don't need a background light. We've got the backlight on the talent, we've got the key light, we've got the fill light, we've got the interviewer. And again, the fill light and the interviewer can swap sides, and then the key light and the backlight are interchangeable in this regard too. You could flip this depending on your circumstances. This third interview lighting setup is very similar to the one that we just covered, but we're going to make more use of that room. Now, this is typically one that I use if I have maybe a little bit bigger space, like a larger conference room or something. I'm still kind of confined to it, but I've got a little bit more room to work with. Now, like the rest of them, we're going to put our interviewee there in the middle, and then we're just going to draw a little box around them. And this is going to be something that's kind of illustrative of our room. So this box, just kind of consider it the room. We're going to put the camera in this corner, film into the opposite one, so again, we have a lot of depth there. Now, what we want to do is draw a couple of little nodes on these two sides opposite the camera. And then we're going to put a light here, and a light here. So again, we're utilizing this backspace. Now, you might be wondering how we're getting away with using a light directly behind the person in this scenario. Usually what I do is I put that down low and use that as a background light rather than the backlight in this scenario. So if we wanted to put the interviewee on this side, again, apparently I always film with the talent looking off to the right. This ends up being our key light over here. This is our background light. And then this ends up being our fill light. Now, what you could do, if you had a third or a fourth light rather, you could use your fill light right here, and then that one would become your backlight. But again, I don't use that one a lot. I usually just use these three lights, and a lot of times I'll even just use these two. And this is just another scenario to get you thinking about how to utilize space when it comes to interview lighting. So this fourth and final interview setup is one that I use when I've got a lot of space to utilize. Now, these are circumstances in which you've got a really large office, maybe like a CEO or a president of a company. You've got a warehouse or a workshop or something, someone that's doing some work, and they've got a large space to utilize in the background. I use that space to help kind of tell the story of who this person is. That space will have its own kind of lighting, but what we want to do is let that space help us out, but we're also going to draw some stuff out here as far as the lighting on the talent goes. So again, we're going to draw our talent here, and this one is a little differently. What we want to do is draw a square like this. Now again, that's the talent. We're going to put the interviewee directly across from them this time though. And again, like always, let's put that camera down here in the bottom left. And then what we want to do is we want a light there, a light here, and a light here. And what this is going to give us is really nice 3-point lighting. So this will be the key light, this will be the backlight, that will be the fill light. And again, we're going to have the person looking off camera. And if you wanted to, you could put a couple of extra lights here on these kind of nodes. But the main setup is this one. We're utilizing this, and we've got all this additional space here in the background that the camera can see, but we're not going to worry about lighting that. We're going to assume that there's a couple of switches on the wall, or we can use something else there. So there you have it, folks. Those are 4 ways that you can use geometry and shapes in your interview lighting. Now, if you do a lot of testimonial-based or interview-based videos, I would love to hear what you do when it comes to this, because a lot of times what we do is we kind of fall into these little patterns, as you can see here, the 4 of them that I use a lot of the times, and I would love to hear what you do. What does your brain go through? What is your thought process behind lighting an interview when you get onto a set, when you've got a smaller room or a larger room? Any of those things. Leave those down below. I'd love to have a conversation with you guys about this. This is something that we should all share and talk about because it's something that a lot of us do. Most of us do interview or testimonial-based videos at some point or another. So if you like this video and you want more content just like this, there's a subscribe button down below. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I will see you next time.